Hello, internet. Welcome. Oh, say that was me pulling off trying to do my Matt Pat. Now that he's retired, somebody's got to take his place, right? No, hey, welcome to United Opposition with Scott and Marshall. Today we are going to duke it out, and we're talking about communism and capitalism. Here we go. All right, it's United Opposition, where two people on opposite sides are going to argue, talk about things that we believe in, maybe getting a little fisticuffs over the screen, but still at the end, be united as friends. That's what United Opposition is about right now. We're part of the 511 Media Network, and 511 Media is brought to you by Covenant Coffee. I've got my coffee right here. Covenant Coffee is a way where you can get two locations in Bakersfield, or you can order online. You can get your coffee. You can get K-Cups. You can get coffee. You can go and get your coffee there. They're located on North Chester, and they're also located right here by California and Mohawk, right across the street from the 511 studios. And that way you can support a ministry that supports emancipated foster youth, those who have aged out of the foster system, that maybe they don't have a home yet to go to anything. They support them. They give them jobs. They give them mentoring. And we really want to get behind that. So this is my Covenant Coffee little ASMR. Here on 511 Media, again, United Opposition, we are talking about capitalism. And on the screen next to me, we've got our comrade in arms supporting
communism.
Capitalism.
I don't know if yeah. Well, we'll get into it.
We'll get into it. I don't know that you and I can actually have this conversation in 30 minutes or less. So I went ahead and called this episode part 1, just in case there's a possibility that we have to continue. We might cut like right in the middle. So, okay, we're going to continue. We'll see how it comes down. But just our opening statements, capitalism versus communism. I'll give my opening statement. You give your opening statement, and we're going to talk about this. This is my opening. I'm going to read it because I wrote it down. But it says, mine is, both are flawed. But capitalism to me is preferable as it co-opts human nature to encourage and reward individuals to better themselves by providing a path to upward mobility unseen in human history. And communism only works when individuals are controlled to act against their nature for the greater good that is defined by an oligarchy. That's my opening statement. Marshall, opening statement.
Yeah, well, I think capitalism speaks for itself in terms of how awful it is. As for communism, it's not actually been realized, and that's an issue. And a lot of people mislabel communism, and including people who claim to be communists. And I think it's inevitable. It is literally an inevitable fact of the future, and either we embrace it or we die. We're not going to have a choice. It's going to be forced upon us, and we'll talk about what that means.
All right, so you are opening up with your logical fallacy of no true Scotsman. Is that correct?
You're right. That sounds like it would be a logical fallacy. But if you take a look at communism, as Marx explained what it is, as a stateless, classless, moneyless society, where all people contribute according to their ability and receive according to their need. Show me one example of that that's ever happened. It's never happened.
Right,
and
right.
A problem with this, the reason for this,
a great position to be in, because then every time it was tried and drastically failed, you can just say, "Oh, but that wasn't real communism." It's a great.
Well, here's the problem. Here's where you and I are going to agree. Revolutions are always betrayed. Whether it's the American Revolution, and we look at what we have today, I don't think the founding fathers would would necessarily approve of what we've done with the Constitution and the nation the way it is today.
I do like that it's taken
for better or for worse.
For the most part, it has survived for over 200 years. It didn't immediately get co-opted.
Right. But revolutions tend to get betrayed, because what happens is when people get power corrupts. And of course, absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? But it rocks absolutely too. So I just want to throw that out there. But
yeah, but communism can't work because it tries to work against human nature. It will never succeed because it works against human nature. So trying to follow that, trying to get that is an exercise in futility, but doesn't stop people from trying and killing millions, while they're doing it and claiming it's a great utopia. It's a great utopian idea that has all the hopes for mankind and all this great intention, and it's so easily stolen and used to control people.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's
Well,
history. That's the
again,
legacy of
you make
communism.
the assumption that humans are fundamentally flawed,
Yes,
that
we
we're inherently greedy and evil and so
yes,
on, which is what, original sin, right?
that,
And all that. That's core
that is
belief. That's
that
a
is
dogma for Christians.
you
But
don't have to teach a child to lie. You don't have to teach a child to steal. You don't have to teach a baby to take a toy from another baby. That's their nature. That is our human nature, is selfishness. That is absolutely obvious to anyone with an open eye.
and yet there's plenty of scientific research and studies out there that indicate that babies and toddlers actually can be altruistic and so on. So are people fundamentally good, or are they fundamentally bad? Are they good and they're made bad by the influences that are around them? That's a very difficult question to answer. And I think that psychologists and others have tried to answer it. And you just get into the weeds. Well, what makes something good? What makes something bad? And so on. But at the end of the day, we're not going to have a choice. What's that?
Selfishness may not always be bad.
Right. Well, there's a certain amount of, you've got to take care of yourself, right?
Yeah.
There's a certain amount of that's there. But is there a limit? What are the limits, for example, that should exist in capitalism? Capitalism does not recognize any limits. There are no limits. The only limits in capitalism is what you can pay for something, which is price. Because, there are three fundamental economic questions.
But real quick, before we get into those, and we're talking about capitalism and communism, I'll give you the mic for this. Define them.
Well, capitalism is an economic system. In general, it can be defined as and I used to have a snap definition for this.
I have it right here.
But corporations exist, and corporations, I can't even remember my own definition. It's been years since I pulled this out.
Trade and industry system where trade and industry is controlled by private owners for profit. Is that a good summation?
Yeah, cool. I think that's an excellent summation. And so I agree with it.
Okay, cool. Communism.
So communism is, as I already explained, it's a stateless, classless, moneyless society where people contribute according to their ability and receive according to their need. Never existed. It's very utopian. I will agree with you there. There have been attempts at it, but the attempts have been betrayed. And so we have these messes that we've had, here.
Is socialism then the closest we've gotten in human government? Because socialism is a government form, right? You're saying that true communism does not actually involve a government. Is that what you're trying to say?
Right. It's stateless. So there's really no need for a government. Instead, the people themselves are literally the government. The people manage everything for themselves. And a stage on that path is socialism.
So probably
socialism
we can get to is socialism.
Well, so far, that's the closest we've come to it. And believe it or not, we actually find it in these hybrid economies where you have a hybrid between capitalism and socialism, like the Scandinavian nations. They're capitalist, but they have a very strong social safety net. And that's the closest we've come to this. Karl Marx would say it doesn't matter because the transition is inevitable. Capitalism is self-defeating, which I believe it very much is. And we're going to get to that point probably in the next generation or two at the most, where capitalism crumbles in on itself. We can even see it here very recently within the next 10 decades because capitalism tends to consume, it overconsumes. What's that?
Limit is 400 years.
What do you mean the limit is 400 years? Do you mean like from when the Dutch kind of figured out what capitalism ought to be, or what?
It's been around for 400 years and has not self-defeated itself as much as communism has.
Right, but let's take a look at the trends, right? And there's some excellent studies out of MIT that say, hey, if we don't change our ethic, if we don't change our ecology, the way that we relate to the environment and do things, if we don't change the way that we interact with each other as a civilizations, if we don't stop this competition that we have, we're going to fall off the edge of a cliff here in the next 10 to 50 years. And this is right out of MIT. And these assessments are pretty much on track. They did a refinement after, the year 2000 and said, well, we had multiple models and this particular model we're right on, and we're getting very close to it. And I think the general consensus is about the year 2050, we're going to hit a wall.
Yes. And I've heard predictions my whole life.
Sure. Everything. Of course you have. Yeah.
So, so how is that any different than anything in nature? Nature is competition.
Right. So now you're busting out Malthus, Malthusian collapse is a thing, and we're going to get there.
But nature has been around for, if you're an evolutionist, it has not stopped the earth from spinning.
Oh, right. Yeah. Let's be very clear here. The earth is going to survive and nature is going to survive. The question is whether or not humanity does and civilization does. And right now it's not looking so hot. Now, you and I will probably live the full length of our natural years, which, for me might not be that much longer the way it's going. But the fact of the matter is, for our children, our grandchildren, it's going to be tough times.
All right, this is fresh on my mind right now. Literally just popped in my mind. It's gonna be really funny. And people who are watching, some conservative friends, religious people, you may not like this idea. I'm going to start with this statement, in that I believe that communism works on a small scale. Like, it works on a small scale. I've seen it. I've been to Israel. I've been on a kibbutz in Israel, and it's literally commune. And when you have a small scale, it just doesn't scale big. But one day it will, because really, when Christ returns and we are living under God, post rapture, post tribulation, that effectively is going to be a theological dictatorship ran communist utopia.
Well, it will be stateless, right? It will be stateless. It will be classless. It will be moneyless.
We'll have a divine dictator, if you're going to use that terminology, who, was it the idea of the benevolent, but everything will work and we will serve each other. That is the whole thing of the church, is to serve each other. I just don't think it works in scale as a form of governance. I believe that as Christians, yes, we should be serving each other. We should be sacrificing what we have for others, and that we should be living for the community of all those around us first. It's the utopia. It's the hope. It's the, how human beings can be, but that won't happen until God comes back. Like that's not possible for human beings to do that until God comes back. But I just made this connection right now of, maybe you are right in this one thing. Maybe we only do have a few years left until capitalism crashes the earth, but that's also predicted in the Bible as well. Maybe capitalism is the thing that destroys the earth and leads us into the tribulation. Maybe God already saw this coming, and it's kind of funny, but I don't know. I just had that thought right now. I had to spill it out. This is raw. I have no idea. I don't know. I haven't studied this. I haven't all I did was look into Thank
you, Karl Marx.
Yeah, sorry. I get the idea.
Thank you, Karl Marx. Fist bump.
Yeah. I get the whole idea of the hopelessness of what communism wants to be. I'm just realistic and know that cannot happen with human beings, but it can happen with transformed human beings. It can happen when people are different, when people have been transformed internally. But the problem is, as far as a form of governance among humans, I believe that communism is not in cohesion with Christianity. And let me explain, because communism is all about the greater good for the greatest people. Would you agree on that? That it's the focus of communism is not on individual success, but on communal success.
Yeah. That's a big thing.
And that's a big thing. Yeah. That's why I think, but salvation, as a Christian, salvation is based on individual choice. You're not going to heaven because you belong to this group of people. You're not saved because you belong to this group of people. You are saved because you made a personal choice to follow God. You made a personal choice to be part of a relationship. So any form of governance that says the betterment of the people is more important than the betterment of the individual. Any form of governance that says we must sacrifice the rights of the individual for the greater good, I believe is incongruent with the idea of Christian faith and incongruent with the idea of personal responsibility for salvation. And so for me, looking at it, that the reason I side on the side of capitalism and against communism is because I believe in the rights and freedoms and liberty of individuals. And I believe that that is always going to be paramount, even at the detriment of society. It's still more important for individuals to have the freedom to choose how they want to live their life, how they want to make their money, what they want to do with their money. I believe that that the Christian view is supportive of individual freedom, not groupthink. That's where I stand.
Welcome to the revolution, comrade. You're still going to gulag, but welcome. Wait until I blow your mind by explaining to you that there are actually Christian socialist parties, political parties in Europe and such that.
Oh, yeah, I know that.
Christianity and socialism are not, incompatible,
and there are churches in the United States who are doing gay marriages against the Bible. Just because a group is doing it doesn't necessarily mean that it's actually Christian and actually biblical. I'm talking.
Yeah, but I think if you could create a state or a commune or whatever that was founded on Christian principles, and it was you and everybody who believes just like you, I think it would be a very cooperative place, and there would be a high degree of individual autonomy, but it would be respectful.
But it wouldn't.
Your rights would end where my rights begin, and we would be free to do whatever we want within those reasonable boundaries.
It's giving a battery warning on the screen. What I'm saying is that as where was I going with this thought? Yes, communism works on a small scale. Like I said, you can have a church group that build it, have its own compound, have its own thing, and be self-sufficient, and the people within that can operate under the idea of communism, and that will work. And there's no governance. But at some point, a community gets to the size where somebody has to enforce the rules. There has to be an oligarchy of power. And that's where communism will always fall off the rails, unless that oligarchy of power is God, like literally is God, with people that have changed their hearts in that way. I think that that's a possibility. Outside of that, when it's under human control, there comes a point where communism simply outgrows its usefulness and cannot be maintained unless there is a level of dictatorial control.
Well, communism is the final stage of human political and social evolution, if you will, according to Marx, at least. Let's take you to outer space, right?
Because everything gets from big. Eventually, when it all falls apart, you're down to your city, your community.
Let's take this somewhere.
Okay.
Let's take. Have you ever heard of a colony ship?
No.
In science fiction, if you want to go to the next star system and you want to travel there, it could take centuries. And so all the humans get on this colony ship, and it's a ship, and everything is limited. The food, the air, the space, the water, everything is very limited. And you've got to survive on this ship until it gets to wherever it's going.
Yeah.
Now, what kind of rules would you have in a system like that? Would you just kind of let everything be laissez-faire, free for all, or would there have to be some kind of limits? What happens if somebody says, well, I own the water, you now have to pay me to drink water. The water is not a right. You don't have a right to water here on the colony ship. You have to pay me if you want to drink water.
I like this. Where you're going with this? I've jumped. I can jump to the end, but go ahead and keep your analogy going for everybody watching.
Well, no, that's it. My question to you is, what would you do about that?
Well, again, it's a hypothetical based on, taking a small thing of here's this one little ship with a clearly defined set of resources. I do not equate that to the Earth. I believe.
Well, guess what the name of the ship is?
It's Earth. Yeah, but I know exactly where you're going. I know exactly where you're going.
Yeah.
But I think your idea that Earth has this finite limitation, I don't believe that we've gotten anywhere near hitting that.
Really?
I understand that it's not infinite, but I believe innovation has brought us. I mean, yes, we have farmed the heck out of everything, but over the years, because of capitalism, because of innovation, we've been able to go from being a mostly agrarian and agricultural and farming to where the amount of property, the amount of land actually needed to farm, it's a fraction of what it used to be because of innovation, because we found a way
but not because of capitalism. The seed drilling machine was invented, before capitalism was.
Seed drilling machine is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the science.
That's Jethro Tull and agrarian route. Well, technically, it's the beginning of the Industrial Revolution in England.
There is nothing, and the Industrial Revolution came directly out of capitalism.
Yeah, with all of its ills.
So we've had thousands of years of entities living without capitalism, and the technology line of, it's like, okay, we got this. Then we hit capitalism, Industrial Revolution, and then we've spiked in innovation because in the last 400 years, in the last 200 years, the last 100 years. We lived all this time without capitalism, and there was no innovations at the level that we have. So the level of innovation that we have is allowing us to resource things. And I think we let technology resource things and continue. Yes, I believe that this is not an infinite amount of resources on this planet, but I believe it is much more sufficient than to try to make the argument of here's this one little spaceship with this very known, because that little spaceship, exactly your finite resources. We don't know the finite resources of this Earth. We don't know. We have drilled how many miles deep, and that's it. We don't know what this Earth has to offer. We don't know the technologies that are out there that could process things. How many times like this is the limit of this? Oh, did you know that we can only get this so much oil until we decide, oh, we can do fracking, we can do this, we can go over here, we can dig straight down. But now we can, how many years did it take them to be able to figure out, oh, we can't just dig straight down. Now we can dig in different. There's always going to be innovation to find more. This is not we know exactly what so that's why I feel like that argument, though creative, I like it, is not an actual one-to-one equal of the analogy that you think it is.
Okay, so a couple things here. First of all, you talked about the innovation, the industrial innovation, and the great productivity of humanity. And really, that's attributable more to the scientific method. And when you take a look at capitalism and the scientific method actually have a very parallel course. The two ideas developed at the same time. And the scientific method is simply a way of asking questions and getting to answers. Mm-hmm. And when you apply that same logic, that same discipline to economics and to industry and other human activities, you can rapidly increase efficiency of these things, which is what we've done. We've scaled up very rapidly.
When did Newton live?
When did what?
When did Newton live? In
the 1600s.
When did Michelangelo live?
I believe the 1300s.
All right. That was. How come none of their scientific method things kicked off?
Well,
all of the inventions that Michelangelo had and drew. How come those didn't take off?
In the 16th century too. I can't remember, but
why didn't they take off?
Well, because his little helicopter is not very aerodynamic.
Right, but why did none of those things take off? There was no capital to do it. Science has made breakthroughs, but without the capital to get behind it. Science.
Well, I have no contention with you there. That's not what I'm arguing with you. But now let me ask you another question, and that is, what is the fundamental economic problem in economics?
What do you mean?
What is the fundamental economic problem in economics? It's the very first thing that you learn when you walk into an economics classroom. In fact, it's that elementary.
I do not know. Okay. Did our economics teacher, Mr. Love, teach us that in our senior year?
I don't know, and I hope he did, but I don't remember learning it from him. But this is, of course, the fundamental economic problem, which is called scarcity. And how do you meet theoretically unlimited demands with scarce resources? So
Yep.
the fact of the matter is resources are scarce. Even if the earth has infinite resources, which it does not, because it is
It does
not
not.
because it is a finite place, the ability to access all of those resources and the economics required to do so, the activity and all of the inputs you need to extract a unit of something that's useful, it goes up on a logarithmic scale, and you do hit a wall. There's only so much clean air and clean water and clean food and resources and other things that are on the planet. Can we find ways to scale these up? Does science and technology offer this hope to us? Of course it does.
Yep.
But at a certain point, we are going to hit a wall, and when we hit the wall, that's your Malthusian collapse. So we
Right.
have to figure out, and we have to start now, because
But
the handwriting is on the wall.
Oh, there's another answer. You're forgetting another answer. The other answer still follows with, unless you expand where you're living. And science and capitalism can get us there. You can find resources off this planet, and you can grow and you can expand beyond that. You can increase your resources by build that. I mean, every science fiction, universe that you've seen, that's the whole idea. The whole idea is that it is expanded, and maybe one day humanity will survive to the point to where technology can get us to the point where then we can expand and grow and move past that and increase that. The answer is not
or
simply
maybe
give up. We just have to give up.
Maybe we collapse before we get there. Or you should be familiar with the Fermi paradox, right?
Why give up? Why give up?
I'm not saying we give up at all. But what I'm telling you, well, Scott, you got to let me talk, man.
You literally said that. No. I'm going to stop you. You literally just said we have to stop and turn around and go back to comedy. Why do you want to give up?
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. Okay, well, that's not what I meant then. All right, I didn't, but here's the deal. We have to stop this breakneck progress at all costs thing, and we have to figure out how to make do with what we have. It's kind of like we keep going to the bank and taking out loans and loans and loans, and the bank keeps giving it to us, but eventually we're not going to be able to pay even the interest on the loans.
Yeah, but one day we just might win the lottery. That's my economics.
Right. And that's what I'm telling you is that, there's a thing called the Fermi paradox, right? If life exists throughout the universe, why isn't it here? Why haven't we heard from them? Yeah, and there'll be people who will argue, well, the aliens and the UFOs, and I get all that. But the fact of the matter is, one of the answers is that there is this wall, is what they call it. And the wall is not a literal wall, but that civilizations arise and develop, but then they hit this point where they can no longer leave their planet. They destroy themselves or something happens. So basically they collapse inward on themselves.
And again, we're talking about communism and capitalism. We're going to close this up in about 1 minute, and we're going to continue this next week. I think there's still way more that we can talk about. But I think you and I, this whole argument might be a moot point because AI is going to kill us anyway. So,
well, and that could be the wall, that could be one of the obstacles.
Long before capitalism can use up all the resources of this planet, I think AI is going to kill humanity, but then they'll have to figure out how to do the resources of this planet. But I want you to think about this for next week. We're going to come back to this next week, and I want you to think about this. I think, like I expressed, I feel that communism can work within certain things. I just think it cannot grow past a certain size without becoming controlling. And I want you to think about this. We're going to talk about this next week. Is there a form of capitalism that you believe can be survivable? I want you to think about, don't try to answer it right now. I want to talk about this next week. I want to hear if Marshall thinks that there is what regulations would have to have, what do you think there is a way that capitalism can be used for betterment, to use what it does offer and effectively kind of control it in such a way? Is that possible? And would you have is there a plan you could come up with, Marshall, to do that? I want to talk about that next week. We're coming to a close right now. I think you can come up with something.
Oh, I already have an answer for that, but okay, I won't give it now.
We'll do that next week. Everybody, thank you for joining us this week. United Opposition, where a capitalist and a communist can come together, have this kind of, I feel, productive conversation, and it never came to fists. I never had to punch the camera. I never had to try to reach around and do that. And I don't know. I don't know. Did you want to do that? Did you have to resist the urge?
No, Scott, we're good.
Sounds good. All right. Until next time, this has been United Opposition with Scott and Marshall. See you guys next week.
Thank you.